So women and children who love one another, and children who stand by the river's bank, and children who sing for the mountains, men, women, and children who sing for the hungry, men, women, and children who sing for the dying, men, women, and children who care for all people. All people, I sing for all. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You were tapping on my head. There's something that I'm doing right, but there's more that I need to know. More that I need to write. You're tapping in the nighttime, tapping all day long. Yeah, maybe you just wanna hear the sweet song. Maybe you just wanna hear the sweet song. Do you want me to live again? Yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe you just want to hear the sweet song. Hey, do you want me to heal, heal again, yeah, heal again, yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe you just want to hear the sweet song. Do you want me to take my wings and fly? Okay, fly again, fly again, fly again, feel again, love again. Maybe you just want to hear the sweet song. Do you want me to forgive again? Let it go. Release one more time. Give again. Love again. Live again. Fly again. Heal again. Forgive again. Give again. All over. Forgive again. Let it go. Let it go. I hear you tell maybe you just wanna hear the sweet song. Do you want me to live again? I'm gonna live again.
Well, good morning, everyone. That was Charles Holt tapping performed at the Agape Center. For those of you who don't know, that's Michael Beckwith's church out in Los Angeles, California. I pray things are well with each of you as you have joined me this morning, or those of you who are viewing this at some alternate time at the right time. So this morning, we are continuing the conversation that we started on last week. First of all, let me say to those of you who are not familiar with who I am Asar, also known as Greg Stanton. I am the facilitator for Serendipity Sunday. Each and every Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, about 30-minute presentation, something to think about, something to not only think about, but something to take into action in the upcoming week. This ministry is called the Oasis Center for Divine Living. Living is about being. It's about being inside of the lesson and growing through life by encountering the lesson. Well, this morning, we are going to continue that conversation we started about spiritual enlightenment last week. We had a message entitled Birth in Darkness. And if you didn't get the email, my reference scripture this morning was, it is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what it is that is hidden in darkness, and the light dwells with him. That's taken from Daniel chapter 2, verse 22. My message this morning is entitled Encountering Dark Truths. We find that the scripture tells us that we are admonished to study to show ourselves approved unto God, source, divine creator, whatever you want to call it, as a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That is found in 2 Timothy 2:15. So we started the exploration last week by looking at spiritual enlightenment and the etymology of the word enlightenment, and I'll reference it again this morning. En, it comes from the Latin and Greek meaning into, and into the light. The proper concept of photons that illuminate, brighten, or clarity, or give clarity or clarify. It's a state of being in the light, in the knowingness, not just belief. For me, belief is a state of darkness. You could believe things you don't totally understand, and you hold on to them, and you live your life inside of them. You believe things that you're not aware that you believe. But there comes a point where you have a encounter with darkness, and darkness brings a more marvelous light. And then we understand the things that we believe may need to be shifted in order that we can rise into our greatness. So we're talking about clarity, clarifying knowledge. 1 second here. Good. So thank you for joining me this morning for Encountering Dark Truths. This is an interesting topic. Why I say, because when I rose this morning at 3 o'clock, I got up and I went get some water. Then I got back into bed, but I couldn't sleep. And Source had my attention. And so I began to just think about what would be my message today. And Source took me to Encountering Dark Truths. And so that's what I'll kind of look at this morning. I want to start that conversation this morning. And then one of my friends had sent me a message in regards to a video that was sent to me that I had viewed, a YouTube video from a sister who is in South Africa, and I ended up watching a few of her videos. And then so she had sent me a email this morning, and I'm going to start this conversation with that email. 1 second here. Let me not email. It was a text message that I got this morning, and I want to share that. I'm going to let the person remain anonymous, but I want to share with you what was. It's interesting that it came after I had put my message together, and then I sent to this individual this link for today's message. Okay, it says, "I have a question for you. How does it benefit, bless, fulfill someone to have the truth If it hurts to the point of losing morals, causing delusions, or a deviation that leads to mental illness, when a lie or their current belief system keeps them grounded, at peace, optimistic. I know that sounds crazy, but that's exactly what a lot of people are dealing with at this particular point in time. Where we at in time, and I'm not talking about the Gregorian calendar or the 24-hour clock that we use, but I'm talking about that clock that is set in the sky, or set in the cosmos, in the universe, the constellations that we're moving into. We're right on the demarcation of the age of Aquarius, and we're coming out of the age of Pisces. And the age of Pisces is attempting to hold us hostage. And many people are held hostage because the age of Pisces is about belief. It's not about knowing. It's about belief. If you even look at the statements that were made by the historical Christ, it talks about, will thou believe, or be it according to your belief. And now we're moving from a place where it was according to your belief to a place of what is it that you know. And you only can know something if you're intimate with it. And a lot of times we seek to be intimate with source, but we're using forms of birth control. I use that as an analogy. We're strapped up. We are taking birth control so that the truth that we are inseminated with is not able to pierce the veil or the womb of our closely held beliefs. But you got to take off the contraceptive, or you got to remove the condom when you're encountering source, when you're intimate with source, because source will impregnate you with an idea, with a thought, with an understanding that is yet to be brought forth in the earth. The word tells us source does nothing except he first reveals it to his prophets. And I'm not talking about the religious prophet. I'm talking about the individual who has the gall, the wherewithal, the bodaciousness to hear what source is saying and do what source is instructing. Too many of us are spiritual punks. And what that means is we have spiritual enlightenment, but we're held hostage to what others going to think, what others going to feel. So back to this statement that was made to me by this individual, is one thing I want you to know, that the scripture says that the traditions of men have made the word of God of no effect. And what are the traditions? The traditions can be a truth that is given to us, that once we receive it, we hold on to it and we lock on it, and we don't make space for anything else to challenge it, or for the truth that we know to be expanded. And so we remain spiritual midgets. We remain mere human beings. But if you truly want to rise and take the stage for the time such as this, you must first acknowledge who you are, what kind of stuff you're made of. You must no longer be limited to your family of origin as far as it relates to what you believe, what you're willing to receive. You must no longer allow that which is outside of you to dictate to that which is inside of you. We must learn to meditate. We must learn to study. The word also says, with much study comes much heartache. I've been in this game 40 years. Actually, I've been in this game, I would say 60 some odd years, because I chose to come here. And then even as a young person, I found that I was very introspective. I spent a lot of time in the silence. I spent a lot of time with myself, and I've always been that way. I always have found a time, even when I was with people and having the best time, there comes a point where something goes off in me that says, still away. Maybe it's just to observe what is going on, not from a place of judgments, but for a place of expansion. And why? Because when I was a kid, when I was 12 years old, I remember challenging source, God to show himself, to move from the veil of darkness into the more marvelous light that I could know it myself. And that's what all of our quest should be, to know God, source, divine intelligence for yourself. For until you're willing to know yourself, you can't know God. For if you cannot deal with that which you can see, which is tangible to you, how can you deal with that which is invisible, which is known as the unknowable, but it is knowable? So this morning, I wanted to kind of launch into this message. I wanted to launch into this thought. It's more of a thought, encountering dark truths. Now, what is a dark truth? A dark truth is a veiled truth, a truth that is unknown, a truth that is not as apparent. We're so accustomed to walking in the light. We're so accustomed to walking by sight. We're so accustomed to walking inside of the sensory realm of what we could taste, touch, feel, hear, smell. But there is a more perfect way. And there's the way that is eternal. When we learn to walk, to live, and to exist as spiritual beings. Now, you have to know this. As a spiritual being, you cannot encounter this realm without an earth suit. Just as well, or you cannot fully encounter, just as well as an astronaut traveling into outer space has to wear a space suit because its person cannot engage the elements in that atmosphere because it wasn't designed to. And likewise, our spiritual being, which is the essence of all things, in all things. So heaven and earth suit allows us to differentiate from all the things we see around us, all the people we encounter, because we are the people we encounter. We are all that we see. If you're seeing good, you're seeing yourself. If you're seeing bad, you're seeing aspects of yourself. But when you take on the concept that you are a divine spiritual being, having a human experience, using the divineness of who you are to go through these experiences, oh, it's a glorious life. So I was thinking, what are some of the questions that you have? For it's in the question that you find a powerful answer. When you look at Catholicism, they have this way of teaching called the catechism. And in the catechism, they teach by questions. Because when you have a question posed, it says that there's an answer that is unknown in most cases. If you can answer the question, then you're ready for the next question. And life is filled with questions. But many of us are comfortable with answers that keep us comfortable. Many of us are embracing lies, just outright lies. Some of us are embracing fairy tales. We are embracing myths. We're embracing analogies as truths instead of seeing them as transporters to truth. So that's something we have to come to grips with. So with this question that was posed to me, it's part of expanding. A lot of times when we bump up against new information, the information is not necessarily incorrect, but it rubs us the wrong way. I had an encounter on this past Friday. I had the distinct pleasure of presenting Kwanzaa to the Black History Department at St. Louis University. Well attended. I love being amongst those young minds. And at the end of the presentation, as I was standing there preparing to pack my things up, a young lady came to the table And she came initially with the conversation of, I heard you from Bellwood, Illinois. And I said, yes. And then we went on to have a conversation, only to find that she actually lives around the corner from where I live. She familiar with, she's 10 years younger than the group that I last encountered. Like all the kids that I encountered are really now at the age of 32. So hundreds of kids knew me by way of our our after school program and things we did for the children in that community. So I literally know a lot of young people who are now the young adults. And so she's 10 years behind them. So she had never had an encounter with me. But we got to talking, and in the conversation, she let it be known that she was a Christian before she even started the conversation. So I already knew that I need to handle her with gloves, gentle gloves, because she positioned herself as to who she was. And by saying that, I understood what she believed. She went on to start asking questions about, saying that I'm in Black Studies and that, I believe that, in all the things. And then I asked her a question. Is it possible for the person to oppress you to actually liberate you in any way with spiritual teachings or anything that's going to liberate you? And she thought about it. And she went on to say that all I know is that I believe in Jesus. And so I didn't want to pull the rug out from under her. I allow people to be where they are. And you have to let people be where they are. You have to be concerned with where you are. Let a man examine himself. Okay. It says, for this very reason, many amongst us are sick and dying. And that's over in 1 Corinthians, and that's a scripture that usually is tied to communion. Before we take communion, we say, let a man examine himself. Okay. But I'm saying you should always be examining yourself. When you bump up against dark truths, what is a dark truth? Something that is being revealed to you that causes you to have a level of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive means the way you think, and the dissonance is the way you feel. Now I just heard something that has bumped up against the way I think, the way I got these things all in a row and stacked up, ready to go. They work for me. But now someone is introducing something that can upset my apple cart. And not only are they introducing something that can potentially upset my apple cart, but the reality of what I just heard from that person, I resonate with it. When you resonate with a new truth, a truth you have not ever bumped up against, and you have an old truth that has positioned itself, you're going to experience cognitive dissonance, and people are uncomfortable with cognitive dissonance. So we keep doing what we are accustomed to doing. Just like people stay in relationships that they shouldn't stay in. Individuals stay on jobs that they shouldn't stay on. And a lot of this is tied solely to cognitive dissonance. Let me see what some people are saying over here this morning. Grand Rising, yes, you can enlarge the screen like you can enlarge the screen like usual. Oh, I see. There are two different communication screens. Okay, that was somebody was saying. So they're saying, yes, we are growing from beliefs to knowing. Yes, we are held hostage to what we think others will think or say. And that's what causes most of us a challenge, because automatically when you are going to share with someone a new truth, and you have a truth that's different from theirs, you tend to go on a defense, like you have to defend your truth. But the way to keep your peace is to say, this is my peace. There's two beliefs in the world. I mean, there's two truths. There's the truth that has been revealed, or three truths. The truth that has been revealed and has been received, that becomes a person's personal truth. And then there's the truth that is yet to be revealed, but it's always in existence. And when you bump up against it, it's called the universal truth. A universal truth will change your truth if you're open to change. But when we begin to take the truth that we know and build structures from it, instead of allowing your truth to be a tent, that can be packed up and moved to a new place and erected in a new environment, in a new place with an expanded understanding of truth. She said here, we are held hostage by what we think others will say or think. The opposite is true for most millennials and narcissists due to the openness of social media, whereas many say whatever unfiltered, unbalanced. We must have a center, a mature, ever-growing spiritual consciousness. This is true. 100. I agree with that. 100. We've got to bring balance, but we got to have a center. Each one of us, it's your responsibility to center yourself, to examine yourself, to get to know who you are authentically, to move beyond being part of the group. Too many times we over-identify with our skin tone. We over-identify with our phenotype of being a male or a female, being a Jew or a Greek or a Christian, or being a one who's Hebrew Israelites, or someone who, if you're a Muslim, we identify with all these external things. These are belief systems that are not totally the truth. They're aspects of the truth. Just like you are not totally God, you are an aspect of God. And when you come alongside of other individuals, it helps you to hone who you are by observing them, learning from them, by shining your light, that it happens to be something that gives them the opportunity to grow also. But what we have to understand, that this journey that you're on, this experience you are on, being a human being, is about lessons. It's about you've come here to, first of all, remember, to reconnect. When you come down through those fallopian tubes, when you come down and drop into this light, when you come down through the darkness and you drop into the light, now you got to remember at some point who you are. Because when you drop into this light, you drop into a family system, you drop into a culture, you drop into a religious system, perhaps, and all of those things become part of how we define ourselves. But we all have to get back to the zero state of defining ourselves before we were the skin we are in, the culture we identify. Now, I'm culturally proud. I'm proud to be an African born in the West. Now, two aspects of me. I'm an African and I'm born in the West. I love some of the things about the Western civilization, Western culture. I love Western fashion. I love Western food. I love Western things. But I also understand that at my core, I am an African. So I have to re-engage that aspect of who I am. The question I have when we talk about encountering dark truths, the first thing you have to understand is your orientation. Where are you oriented to? If you're oriented to Christianity, if you're oriented to Islam, if you're oriented to any religion, that orientation can impact your ability to embrace a dark truth, a new truth, something that is critical to who you are and who you're becoming. So I see here, we are held hostage by what we think others will think or say. You got to come away from that. Okay, that's the same thing. Someone says, I am learning to center myself, striving through spiritual maturity, not to allow external things to trigger me. So we have to learn to control ourselves. We have to learn to control our persons. We have to understand when we have an emotional surge, that we ask ourselves, where is it coming from? Why do I have this energy charge? What is am I being challenged? Am I somebody's tapping into a part of me that I really like to? Because when you're excited about something, you respond a certain way. When you're angry about something, when you're defensive about something, you change or you present a certain way. So this morning, I wanted to talk about some dark truths, some hidden truths, some things that are apparent but not so apparent, things that we look at but we don't really see. Like one of the things I was always perplexed with, The scriptures say, out of Egypt, I call my son. And when we look at Moses came out of Egypt, Jesus spent some time in Egypt. Even in the Old Testament, so if you're a New Testament person, in Matthew, it talks about being called out of Egypt. Now we have to understand that Egypt is more than a name, and Egypt is more than a place that has been regulated to, but it represents the continent. It represents Africa, and Africa is often called the dark continent. No, it's not called dark because Black folk are there. It's called dark because when the Europeans began to encounter Africa in the 17th century, they began to see there was a lot of things that was mysterious to them, things that they didn't understand, and things that they went on the original Egyptologists. They imposed upon the objects they found their interpretations based on their experience. Like part of the conversation I had with the young lady on this past Friday, she said that the Africans worship all kinds of gods. And I said, no, let me explain something to you. Even the term God is foreign to the concept of African spirituality. They use the term natur. And she said, what does natur mean? Isn't that a God? I said, no, it means that's where we get our word nature from. So there was a hidden truth from her. She encountered a dark truth on that day. And so when you encounter a dark truth, if it's embraced, it brings enlightenment. It brings expansion. So I had to break down for her that, and for many of us who are Christians who have been taught to believe that Jesus was called out of Egypt, and Moses was called out of Egypt because that was a place only for them to be hidden. No, it was a place for them to go and be revealed deeper truths. When you understand who Moses was, they have co-opted Moses. They have taken Moses as a personage and taken ownership of him. Just like I was watching the movie by, I won't go into that. I'm going to stay focused here on this. So when we look at Moses, Moses represented an individual who was learned in all the ways of the Egyptian. But when you understand the traditional westernized Christianity, it will tell you that all the things that had to do with Egypt was evil. Everything that has to do with Africans is evil. I remember in the early 80s, in the 90s, when I was part of a word church, the preacher was preaching about not having African tribal masks in your home. And when I recently went and purchased, I have about 10 masks that are actual wooden masks from Ghana and certain parts of Africa in my home. Initially, I had to deal with with that idea of this is evil. I bumped up against cognitive dissonance. I resonated with these masks, but I had to deal with the fact that I was told if you bring these masks into your home, you bring in spirits into your home. And all of that is tied to belief. Be it according to your belief. If you believe, I've never encountered a true demon. I have encountered individuals who had situations in their lives that caused them to be at unrest and not peace. But there's no such things as demons. And these people who paint these pictures and show you movies and you take these things on and it becomes your reality. The belief is a powerful thing. We all can attest to that. When we were children, we believed in the Easter Bunny, or maybe you didn't believe in the Easter Bunny. You believed in Santa Claus. You believed in him coming down a chimney until you realized, wait a minute, there's no chimney in my apartment. Then your mama said he was like Bruh Man. He comes in through the window. But the reality is we were celebrating a holiday, but nobody was differentiating for us that a holiday was surrounded by stories and myths, even with our religion. When we look at Christianity, it's filled with myths. It's filled with allegories. It tells us there in the scripture, but you have been led to believe for so long that every biblical character actually walked the face of the earth. It's interesting. that we can't find the bones of any of the biblical characters, but we can find the bones of the pharaohs or the Nasubitis that once walked the face of the earth? Why can't we find these bones of Paul and all these other people? Because they're mystical. They're mythical characters. And if we learn, here's a dark truth. Don't follow the messenger. Follow the message. The truth is in the message. So why is it? Here's another dark truth. We're told to astrology, astronomy. We've told, I'm not dealing with Christianity because that's why that's my centering point. So if you in some other religion, you focus this on, you take what I give you and interpret it through that lens. But I'm talking what I know. So I'm talking to people who are Christians, who are believers. And the one thing that really kind of unsettles me sometimes, I've spent 50 years studying and reading the Bible. I've been in a position as a pastor. I've operated in spiritual gifts. I've actually laid hands on sick and seen them recover. I've also actually laid hands on individuals and seen limbs grow out. So I have an experiential. But the number of people who challenge me, but they won't challenge their pastor. They'll challenge me, but they won't challenge someone who don't look like them. Why? Because individuals tend to become common to you. And you make the mistake of committing the sin of familiarity. So I had to, because I had so many encounters with individuals who, quote unquote, loved me, but when I shared a truth that was juxtaposition to what they have, then they began to question me. Not realizing they know me intimately. They know my character. They know everything there is to know about me, that I study and that I am truthworthy. But yet, because what I was saying to them went against the grain of what they know or have come to believe. They're living in the light of what they know, what they've experienced. But true growth comes in the darkness of what you don't know. Everything grows from the darkness first. And our idea comes from the unseen to the seen. So I was thinking about, we were told we're not supposed to do no astrology or astrology. But every Christian I know their sign. Every one of you on this call right now know your sign or think you know your sign. The reality is that there's some things hidden. We don't even know that source believed, God believed in astrology. What's my proof? Remember when Job had this conversation with God and God says, come on up here and let's have a conversation. And God began to ask him, where were you? And one of the questions he said, where were you when I created the Mazareth? Most of us don't know what the Mazareth is. The Mazareth is, that's a Hebrew word for the garland of crowns. Where were you when I threw the garlands of crowns out in the darkness of night? When I placed the stars and created the constellations? Where were you? But we've been told we're not supposed to follow the stars. Well, we must understand this. So above, so below. If you understand up there, you will understand down here. If you understand what's in here, you will understand what's out here. And so I'm sharing this with you for those of you who have cognitive dissonance when it comes to getting a reading or what people call witchcraft. It's not witch as in WITCH with the pointed black hat. Why does she wear a black hat? Why does she have a pointed hat that looks like unto a pyramid? Where is it pointing to? Why does she wear a black robe? Why does judges wear black robe? Why does everything black that's appear to be negative yet has an impact on our lives? Why is it that we are afraid of blackness, afraid of darkness? But back to the zodiacs. So we see that the zodiac was thrown out. The Bible talks about it. It also talks about the signs and the ages, and we don't understand. These are hidden, these are veiled things. Until we're willing to go into the darkness, into the unknown, until you're willing to take the light of day that you know into the darkness, you're not going to grow. If you want to stay in the light, just like a person who stays in the light and eat, eventually they become full, they become obese, they become to a place where they can't express themselves. Even the plants welcome the night, even though they get their food from the light. They welcome the night because now the energy, that light from the day provides energy for them for the night. And so we have to learn the full counsel is we are children of the light and the night, the day and the night. The fullness of a day is made up of both. But so many of us want to walk in one aspect. Just like you have two hemispheres to your brain. You have a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. You have four quadrants to your brain. How are you oriented? If you're oriented north-south, then you are missing the whole boat. When you look at the Bible, the dark truth is they were oriented to the east. So if you're looking east, left is to the north, which would be your left brain. The right will be your right brain. And if you're looking east, the equator is likened to your brain. There's a right brain that is south oriented, the left brain that is north oriented. And we've been living inside of the north brain for too long. We've been living into what's logical, what's realistic. The south brain, the right brain, a side of your brain, right side of your hemisphere, being oriented to the east, tells you that creation starts on the right side of the brain, the female brain, the divine feminine aspect. And so I'm saying to you, there's a lot of dark things, dark truths, things you don't know about that you must be willing to encounter. If you're not willing to encounter them, you will stay the same. And it's okay. My question is this: how is that working for you? That's my question this morning. If what you know to be truth and you operate in that truth, what is your life looking like? Are you still sick and can't get well? Are you still seeking to hear from God but haven't heard from God? Are you still seeking to be in right relationship with God based on a performance? How is that working for you? Are you tired yet? So we have to understand that life presents to us the lesson, and we must be willing to stop doing what we've been doing if we want to get another outcome. You got to stop listening to who you've been listening to if what they've been saying to you is not they're selling you a bridge. They're selling you a promise. You can't wait to go to heaven so you can walk the streets made with gold, so you can dust off the clouds, so you can sing in the angelic choir. That's foolery. That's foolery. It's just things that have been said to people in the darkest moments of their life to give them an array of hope. But you came here to experience the streets of gold. You came here to experience light. You came here to experience darkness. You came here to experience rain. You came here to experience all the elements, not just all good times. But if you know how to get through the bad times, you always can get to the good times. And if you understand the cycles, the hidden cycles, that this too will pass. Oh, things are good for you right now. Keep on living. When you see someone who is less fortunate than yourself, there's a dark truth that except for the grace of God, there go you. So this morning, I want to challenge you all this morning. I want to challenge you to continue to grow where you planted. Know what classroom you're in. Know what lesson life is giving you. Know who you are, your authentic self. Some of you do need to go and get a reading to get centered, because you listen for the prophet and the prophet is lying. Instead of prophesying, prophet lying, saying to you that which will profit. How many prophets will you bless with money if the prophet gives you a word of doom or potential doom or gloom? So the prophet gives you the word that appears to be profitable to you. See, I've been behind the veil. I know what the apostles are doing. I know what the prophets are doing. I know what the evangelists are doing. I know what the teachers are doing. And I know what the pastors are doing. I've been behind the veil, a place where many of you have never been and will never have access. But I'm telling you, having been on the other side, majority of what we're getting from the other side is incorrect. Let me close with this. If your whole livelihood is dependent on a people believing in certain things and certain truths so you can survive, would you have would you be willing to tell them something that could potentially impact how you live? I remember back in the 80s when the whole conversation was Jesus black. Some churches went as far as they painted Jesus in the sanctuary as black, and black folk left the church. So many black pastors learned really early that if you don't want to impact the plate, that is the offering plate, and your plate at home, give the people what they want. That's the difference between a person who is just using you and a person have come to be used by source to tell you something. How often does your mailman stop by your house and discuss the mail that was delivered? All the mailman does is drop the mail off. And that's the realization that I had to come to. I had to come to the realization is I just dropped the truth, a dark truth. What need is there for me to continue to drop truths that are in the light? People don't grow from the truths that are in the light. You grow from the truth that is unknown, the unveiled thing. That's why when you start studying astrotheology, it gives you a better understanding of the theology of the Bible. When you understand the astrology itself, when you understand that you are not a sign, but you move through all the signs. See, we have all these misinformation. There's a lot of gurus out there, but if you don't have anything to measure them against, you think they're true, they're right. Like when I talk to individuals, be it whatever religious persuasion they may be, I have measurement sticks. I have time. I understand history. So when they share something with me, it's not a mystery. I know it's not my story. It's their truth. And I let people have their truth. Let people have their truth. Like, I'm not knocking on nobody's door this morning, trying to give them this truth. You guys came to me. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And when the teacher is ready, the students will appear. So you don't have to toil, or you don't have to fight with, you don't have to convince nobody of anything. But it is your responsibility to deal with the dark truths that's relevant to you. It is. So I'm just appalled that here we are in 2022 and people still believe old stories and not making space for new stories, not making space for growth. So we have to learn that we must study. You must study to show yourself approved. You must also know that there's some things you can't get by yourself. You know, the Bible talks about when people cast off restraint. And we live in a society right now where people have cast off restraint. Nobody can tell anybody anything because everybody has access to information. But if you have access to information and you do not have a foundation based on truth in whatever area you are accessing information, you will not know whether or not what level of that, what percentage of that information is true. Truth mixed with a little leaven makes it all a lie. Why is it a lie? Because you can't apply it and get the outcome you're supposed to get. So I'm challenging you today. If you are here today under the sound of my voice, there's some dark truths you need to come to grips with. There's some things that you've been toiling with, but you don't know who to ask the question to. You don't know where to go. Well, there are individuals in the earth that you can have those conversations with. I'm going to start next year. Once a month, I'm going to have Ask a SAR. And so throughout the entire month, I field questions. And so I just have to answer the question just off my cuff, because I'm well read in a lot of things, but I want to be able to answer the question, give you source documents, references that you can go to, not just believe it because I said it and that should settle it. That's one of the things I'm going to do next year. I'm repositioning myself to be my greatest self. I'm not going to waste time convincing people. I'm not wasting time waiting on people. I'm going to let my light shine. And I hope that in 2023, you will do the same. Stop scaling somebody else's mountain and scale your own mountain. Excellent. Let's see what's being said here this morning. Okay, so if you got any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. You can hit hit that feature to raise your hand. Let me look over here on YouTube to see if there's anything I need to address. I can't see it here. I got to find out why I can't see the live feed. Somebody's going to have to help me out with that. But I'm going to believe that if somebody got a question this morning, you will raise your hand by hitting that button. I'm looking in the chat to see if there's any questions over there. Okay, there is one. There's a question there. Your image is like a thumbnail rather than landscape. Are you talking about on YouTube, or are you talking about on the Zoom channel? Yeah, that if you can answer me that. So if it's a thumbnail on Zoom, I have no clue why that is happening. Good. So somebody that's in the Zoom room, am I coming through full screen? Oh, she says Zoom. So I have no clue why today that's happening like that. Why it's a thumbnail? I'm not sure of that. So that's all I have this morning. A couple things I want to share before we move on is this. Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living is not a church. It is an organization that is put together to a center where you come to expand. No matter what path you have been on that leads you here, I respect all your paths. It's not for me to go down that path necessarily, but to present to you what I have. And it's a well. You can come dip into this well and get the water out of it. Next year, I will be rolling out, or I'm starting now from December all the way through the month of February. I'll be rolling out my partners program. I'm not a church, and so I have to begin to operate with a new business model. And so I'm going to have partners. And there's different levels of partnership. There's the ruby level, the onyx level, and the emerald level. Rubies are red, onyx is black, emeralds are green. Red, black, and green. There's 3 levels. The red level represents red is for the blood, and it's a struggle for some people to identify something and commit to it. That's a struggle. So that to be part of Oasis, you have to make a commitment. I have too many people popping in, popping out, getting all that I have to offer, but because they're not in right relationship, they have misinformation. So I'm really going to open up the ministry through the partnership program. So if you got the email today, there was a picture that says partnerships. It talk about 2023 partnerships. If you click onto that picture, it'll take you to the website that explores, goes into deeper about the partnerships program. If this ministry has been a blessing to you today, if something that I have said has brought encouragement to you, if you have found value, consider sowing a seed into this ministry. You're not sowing a seed because I have a need, because the universe takes care of me. What one person won't do, there's someone else who will do. But if you were supposed to do it, the seed you were supposed to sow into this ministry would have been the activating seed for your life. So I'm open that up. If you are here today and you want to sow a seed into this ministry, I will encourage you to go to the website, www.oasisspiritualcenter.com. Somebody can type that in there, www.oasisspiritualcenter.com. You go over to the giving tab, you scroll down, and you'll find all the avenues and the platforms that you can use to sow a seed into this ministry. Now, here's another thing I want to say. Many times you say, I'll do it later. The thing that you want done today by source, how about the reason why it's coming later is because you don't do what you're supposed to do in the season you're supposed to do it. What books do you recommend to study to show yourself approved? The first one is to embrace the book that you all know. Many of those of you who are under the sound of my voice understand, have a relationship with the Bible. I am not saying to you, I'm not encouraging you to throw the Bible out. I am saying to you, but you must begin to deconstruct it and reconstruct it. You must begin to look at the Bible through another orientation. And that's part of what I help you with here. That's why I still embrace the fact that my spiritual pathway, my spiritual ladder took me through the land of Christianity. So that's there. So when you talk about books that I recommend, the first book I recommend would be that book that you are familiar with. The second book that I recommend is a book written by Dr. Hiawatha Kamening. It's in spirituality before science and science before spirituality. That's not the correct title of that book. Let me see if I can find it here. That book. I do have the book. I had it yesterday because it's something I read all the time. I will get a list of books I recommend. So what I do recommend, this is what I do. This is how it works for me. I go to there's some books you've already purchased that maybe you need to reread. Not you, Pam. I'm just saying overall. Look what's in your library. What jumps out at you? Start reading that. So one of the first books I would recommend for those who are new on this pathway is the books that has to do with stolen legacy. Stolen Legacy is a great book to start with. That's one of the books I would recommend, Stolen Legacy. But I'll get some books together. Matter of fact, I'm going to develop a recommended reading list for those who are on the similar journey as myself. What books gave me enlightenment? Which books? Some of the books I read caused me great heartache because I wasn't ready for them. And so I want to make sure that you are, now that I know, before you read this book, but stay grounded in what you're familiar with. If you are coming to me this morning and you have been introduced to spirituality through the Quran, continue to read that book because the Quran, the Bible, the Talmud, all lead back to Kemetic thought. And then we begin to unpack some of those things. Okay, thank you, Cheryl, for putting that up there. OasisSpiritualCenter.com. Cash App. If you just want to be quick at it, you can Cash App me. The phone number that you want to use for the Cash App, and you can type that number in there for me. Someone is 708-368-1076. So you go there, you type the phone number in, and you're going to see it comes up Oasis Spiritual Center. So if you want the Cash App to the ministry, that's how you do that. Wow. So it's been a wonderful day. Something glorious is headed. You all have headed your way. Again, I am Asar. This is Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. We are not a church, but we are a center where we delve into topics that will assist you in becoming your best you. We are carving away the dross, the things that have been attached to us that keep our resonance down, our frequencies down, and don't lend to us showing up as our highest and greatest good. Well, it looks like there's no questions, no hands are raised. Let me make sure of that. So that tells me that you are all in a contemplative state and that you've gotten what you need to get. And with that being said, I will wrap up today by saying to you, you are right where you're supposed to be. Face the darkness. Be willing to sit in the silence. Be willing to challenge the light of what you know with the darkness of what you don't know. And if you have a experience when you bump against new information that causes you to automatically to shun it, then you need to go back to it and say, why am I having this response? Because if you have universal truth, it cannot be destroyed. It cannot be destroyed. It can be perfected. That's all I have. You guys have a wonderful day. And we will close with the very song that we started with this morning. We started with a song by a brother by the name of Charles Holt, and the song was entitled Tapping. So you guys have a wonderful day.